There's a factory worker in Ohio who earns more per hour than his father did in 1985. After adjusting for inflation, he earns less. A nurse in Phoenix works 50-hour weeks and can't afford the neighborhood she grew up in. A software engineer in Austin makes six figures and still lives paycheck to paycheck. These aren't lazy people. They're not making terrible decisions. So, what changed? The story we tell ourselves about money is simple. Work hard, get paid, build a life. For decades, that story worked. It doesn't anymore. And the reason why reveals something uncomfortable about how modern economies actually function. Let's start with what most people assume is the problem: wages. People just aren't paid enough. True, but incomplete. Between 1979 and 2023, worker productivity in the United States increased by 65%. Net compensation grew by barely 19%. That gap, that's not an accident. It's a design feature. Here's how it works. When you're employed, you create value. Let's say you're a barista. You make drinks, serve customers, keep the shop running. The coffee you sell generates revenue, but you only see a fraction of that revenue as your wage. The rest becomes profit, rent, equipment costs, and most importantly, returns for investors. This has always been true. What's changed is the ratio. 40 years ago, corporations operated under something called stakeholder capitalism. The idea was that companies owed something to everyone involved: workers, customers, communities, and yes, shareholders. In 1981, that shifted. Shareholder primacy took over. The only thing that mattered was maximizing returns for investors. Everything else became negotiable. So wages stagnated while profits soared. But that's only the first layer, because even if wages kept up with productivity, there's a second problem. The cost of living went up faster than almost everything else. Housing. In 1970, the median home price in America was roughly 2.3 times the median household income. Today, that ratio has climbed to nearly 6 times nationally, and in some coastal markets, it exceeds 10. Rent follows the same trajectory. This isn't because houses got better. It's because housing became an investment asset. When homes are treated like stocks, prices decouple from what people actually earn. Healthcare. In 1960, healthcare was about 5% of the U.S. economy. Now it's over 17%. Americans spend more per capita on healthcare than any other developed nation, roughly $13,500 per person, and rank lower on almost every health outcome. The system isn't designed to keep you healthy. It's designed to extract maximum revenue from illness. Education. A 4-year degree that cost $10,000 in 1980 now runs over $100,000 at many schools. Student loan debt in the U.S. remains a staggering $1.75 trillion. Entire generations are starting their financial lives underwater, paying interest on a credential that's now considered the baseline for entry-level work. So you have wages that don't grow, costs that explode, and a third factor most people never see coming: financial engineering. This is where it gets absurd. Credit cards, buy now, pay later schemes, payday loans, overdraft fees. These aren't designed to help people in tight spots. They're profit centers. The average credit card APR in the U.S. has climbed to over 22%. Miss a payment, and you're paying interest on interest. Even with recent regulatory crackdowns, banks have historically pulled in over $10 billion annually from overdraft fees alone. That's not lending, that's a tax on being poor. And it's not just individuals. Cities, hospitals, universities, they all took on massive debt during the last 2 decades of low interest rates. Cheap money created the illusion of sustainability. Now rates are higher and the bill is coming due. Services get cut, jobs disappear. Guess who absorbs the pain? Here's the irony. People are working harder than ever. The average American works 1,811 hours per year. That's nearly 470 hours more than the average worker in Germany, and roughly 300 more than those in the UK or France. Productivity keeps climbing, but the rewards flow upward. In 1965, the average CEO made about 20 times what their typical worker made. Today, by some metrics, it's over 340 times. Not because CEOs are working 340 times harder, because the system redistributes value away from labor and toward capital. Now zoom out. What happens when an entire society runs on this model? You get a generation that can't afford kids. Birth rates across the developed world are collapsing. Not because people don't want families, because the math doesn't add up. Childcare costs more than rent in most cities. Parents are trapped between working enough to survive and being home enough to raise their children. You get political volatility. When people work full-time and are still struggling to make ends meet, they stop trusting institutions. They look for someone to blame. Immigrants, elites, the other political party. The real answer is structural. But structures are harder to fight than people. You get loneliness. When everyone's working multiple jobs or side hustles just to stay afloat, there's no time for community. No time for friends. No time to build the social connection that makes life enjoyable. Productivity becomes the only virtue. Rest becomes luxurious. And here's the part that should bother you. This isn't sustainable. Economies need consumers. If workers can't afford to buy what they produce, the whole system seizes up. We've been papering over that contradiction with debt. Household debt, corporate debt, government debt. It works until it doesn't. Some people will say the answer is simple. Just earn more, save more, invest smarter. And sure, individual decisions matter. But when the structure itself is rigged, personal responsibility becomes a convenient excuse to ignore systemic failure. You can't budget your way out of a housing crisis. You can't side hustle your way past wage suppression. Others will point to policy. Raise the minimum wage, tax the rich, build more housing, make healthcare public. These might help. But they require political will in a system where the people who benefit most from the current arrangement also have the most influence over how it's designed. So here's the uncomfortable question. If working hard no longer guarantees stability, what does? If productivity and profit keep diverging, who wins? And if an entire generation is locked out of the life their parents had despite doing everything right, nothing will change. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was redesigned to work. But for whom? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Is there any other issue that you think creates this gap? If you've made it this far, thank you. By sharpening your knowledge and understanding of the economy, you've already placed yourself one step ahead in the journey to becoming a better version of yourself. If you found value in this breakdown and want to see more, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. It helps me continue to produce these deep dives into the forces shaping our world.